Ian Castleberry with the Wise Guys with Barrett Sports Media, and it is our NFL Gold Nuggets feature for this Thursday, and it's presented by David Creasman and DC Creasman Jewelers. Ian, how you doing on this Thursday, friend?
Just like you guys trying to digest this UCLA USC news, all of a sudden my phone and email boxes are blowing up. I'm like, oh, I'm not getting any other work done this afternoon.
It's real quick, just your thoughts on that.
It's a great move for the Big Ten. I mean, I hate it for college football, but I mean, that horse left the barn a long time ago. But it's a great move for the Big Ten to lock down the LA TV market, which I think is what this ultimately comes down to. I mean, geographically, of course, it makes no sense other than the Big Ten and the Pac-12 playing each other every year in the Rose Bowl. I would speculate that this is not the end of it either. If the Big Ten is going to, like, maybe are they going to go after other schools in the Pac-12? I'm thinking of Stanford and Cal. Could they go after some of the schools that were abandoned by the Big 12? I don't think the expansion will stop with just UCLA and USC.
Oh no, it's Ian, you're so right. This is going to it's going to affect all the way down to the Big South, the Southern Conference before it's all over with.
Boy, it is. I agree with both you boys on that. We'll follow this, of course, closely. This is just breaking news. We're just trying to wrap our heads around it and digest over the last hour or so. But Ian, let's get to the NFL goodies. First off, of course, Deshaun Watson. I think it's safe to assume he won't be on the cover of Massage Monthly anytime soon. But there could be more women bringing accusations against the Browns quarterback. A new lawsuit brought against the Texans is adding another layer to this story. Ian, should the Texans be pooping their pants right now?
Yeah, the Texans should be very concerned about this. As you pointed out, there's been a new lawsuit, not just suing. This woman has already sued Deshaun Watson, but now she's suing the Houston Texans, saying they enabled this behavior by Watson by paying for hotel rooms. They set him up with a membership at an upscale hotel and social club in Houston called the Houstonian. So does that make the Texans complicit in this behavior, setting him up with a place where he could have these massages, outside, away from the team facility, not necessarily connected to the team except for this financial consideration? The Texans, they had already had, Watson wasn't getting massages from team personnel. The team had an agreement with an outside massage therapy place for anybody who wanted to get a massage, but Watson quickly burned through that, apparently. I think there's some employees of that firm who mentioned that Watson or accused him of sexual misconduct there. So if the Texans set this up and enabled such behavior, I think it is certainly a concern. And there's also some rumblings that this is a violation of the NFL salary cap rules, because if they paid for these hotel rooms and so forth, this membership, outside the terms of his contract, that is a salary cap violation, according to reports. So that is a penalty, or something that could result in a penalty for the Houston Texans.
Wow. I mean, here's the thing, guys. Remember, one of the plaintiffs said, hey, it was the Texans trainer that gave her the non-disclosure agreement, the NDA, to sign with Watson.
Oh, right. That's the other thing. Yes,
I mean, yeah, right. Go ahead, Ian.
No, that the Texans set up this non-disclosure agreement, which was given to him, as you said, by a member of team personnel, that Watson would give to these women and convince them to sign it. Not really saying why is it in their interest to sign a non-disclosure agreement with Watson. And basically, his threat, if you will, was, well, if you don't sign this, I can't pay you. So, yeah, that's another aspect of this, that maybe that the Texans helped Watson out with all of these misconduct cases.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, this is not getting any better for Deshaun Watson. Maybe Baker Mayfield should be prepared to play a season with the Browns. And that leads us to our next topic here, Ian. Now, Baker says he and the Browns have, quote, moved on. But have the Browns moved on? I mean, we don't know what's happening with Watson. And it could be 6 to 8 weeks. We're hearing that possibly with this arbitrator. It could be a year. I don't think it's going to be any more than a year at this point from what I've read. But Baker Mayfield could really help himself. And as Shu pointed out on Monday, help the Browns as well. This could be a win-win for both sides. They haven't traded him. They still may need him. Where do you think this can go, Ian?
I think the reason the Browns haven't traded Baker Mayfield is because they haven't found a team that's willing to pay Mayfield's contract, or at least pay as much of it as the Browns would like. If the Browns could have traded him by now, especially under these financial terms, I think they would have. So from that standpoint, maybe they have moved on, but it does sound like it's more of a situation where Mayfield doesn't want to play for the Browns, but maybe the Browns are looking at the situation and saying, well, we could use him, even though they come out and said that they think Jacoby Brissett is capable of running the offense next season. And from a salary cap standpoint, of course, the Browns would want to get rid of Baker Mayfield, but if it turns out that they can't get rid of him, suddenly it doesn't seem too bad to pay $19 million for a starting quarterback for at least one season. But I still think eventually the Browns, if they really want to get rid of Baker Mayfield, they're just going to have to clamp down and say, all right, we're going to pay 10, maybe up to 12 million of his contract. And they haven't been willing to do that up till this point, but I think that's what it's going to take to trade Baker Mayfield, whether it's to the Carolina Panthers or the Seattle Seahawks.
You know what bothers me, Mike Gore, with this is that the Browns, have this contract with Deshaun Watson that pays just $1 million next season because they're anticipating a suspension. So you've got some extra money out there. Why are you concerned about getting as much money as you can for Baker Mayfield? I think your bigger concern is getting Baker Mayfield ready for the 2022 season, if indeed that's what it comes down to. But it seems like that ship has sailed, but I think this is a good opportunity for Mayfield. I don't know if he's going to take it, Mike.
This has just been handled about as poorly as you can handle it.
Hello.
The Browns, what a surprise that after that a couple good years with drafts and some things falling into place, there's you have to appreciate some organizations that take big swings. Like, my Bills going for it with Von Miller. There's a calculated risk in taking a guy who's 33 years old, but they really believe that that can get them over the hump and get them to the Super Bowl and win it. And then there's the Browns who decided to take a big swing and take a guy that has been accused by about 800 different massage therapists of foul play. So, it's just mind-boggling that they would do this. Mayfield, I know he didn't have the greatest of years last year. He had some injuries, but, he did lead them to the playoffs. They did win their first road playoff game in over 50 years when they beat the Steelers with Baker Mayfield as their quarterback. And, they weren't bad last year. They just lost a lot of close games with some of those injuries. And I just don't understand why you would take a chance on Watson. I just don't understand it at all.
And as you said, they screwed this up 6 ways to Sunday. Just when you thought the Browns were not becoming the Browns anymore, they've just slipped back into being the Browns. Ian Castleberry joins the Wise Guys Thursdays on the DC Creasman Jewelers Wise Lines for our NFL Gold Nuggets feature. So the Commanders ink wide receiver Terry McLaurin to a 3-year, $71 million deal, $28 million guaranteed. Ian, he's really good, but is he $71 million good?
He might be $71 million good to the Washington Commanders. Is compared to the other top receivers in the NFL, is he caught 77 passes last year. That's roughly half what Cooper Kupp caught his spectacular season. So McLaurin basically ranks in the top 7 with this new contract. And I think, is he better than DJ Moore? Is he better than Keenan Allen? Is he better than Amari Cooper or Chris Godwin? That's who he's ahead of on the top salaries list. But no, he's not better than, say, Tyreek Hill or Cooper Kupp or Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs. That's who he ranks below in terms of NFL salaries for wide receivers. But to the Commanders, who don't really have another top receiving threat, Curtis Samuel is a good receiver, but I think most of everyone would agree that he's a number 2 receiver at best. I think McLaurin's stats would be better if the Commanders had better quarterback play. Will they get that from Carson Wentz this season? Obviously, that's the hope. But I think, he's only going into his 4th season. I think there is still plenty of upside with Terry McLaurin. As you said, he's very good. Maybe he has the potential to be great, and we just haven't seen that unlocked yet because he hasn't had a good quarterback throwing to him.
Yeah. Well, plus it's nice to get Carson Wentz and keep that top receiver for him. For sure. I know that was probably a factor as well. All right, Ian, we're going with football, but then we're kind of hitting the ring as well, guys. So former NFL stars, Adrian Peterson, Le'Veon Bell, scheduled to fight in an exhibition on July 30th in L.A. All right, Ian, first things first, who's your money on with this one?
I know Adrian Peterson is older, 37 to Le'Veon Bell's 30, but Adrian Peterson seems very, very disciplined to me. For him to have played and still continuing to play in the NFL at that age takes very good care of himself. So I think maybe I'm taking this more seriously than it deserves, but I would bet on Peterson just in terms of training correctly and being disciplined in the ring compared to Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, I agree. Le'Veon is much younger, but the discipline part, when it comes to boxing and training and all of that, discipline's a huge part of it. I'm with you on that. I take the old guy, AP, on that one. All right, so let me ask you this, Ian. Do you think this is a trend we're seeing, retired athletes hitting the ring? Kind of started, I think, with Greg Hardy, if I remember back not too long ago. I mean, do you think they're doing this for competitive purposes or just not ready to stop? The NFL has maybe said no, so let's go to boxing. What do you make of this trend?
Yeah, I think they'll do it for the money. If the money's good enough, and people have shown, I mean, it boggles my mind, but that they're willing to pay for pay-per-views for YouTube stars to get in the ring, Jake Paul and so forth, to fight. So if they're willing to pay for that and to have established NFL names on the undercard, or like Frank Gore, I think was one of them, Darren Williams, an NBA player. So with the money that presumably is being offered, I think we'll continue to see guys who maybe are at the end of their NFL careers looking for a big payday, and why not?
Yeah, hey man, free country, have at it. If the viewership is there and the money can be made, Mike Gore, a second career could be born.
I'll just watch the Rocky movies and be fine.
Yo, Adrian, see? Yo, Adrian. Adrian Peterson saying, hey, what's up, Rocky? Anyway, Ian Castler, before we let you go, I want to get your thoughts on a column that you wrote for Barrett Sports Media. And I found this super interesting in the sense of, and Mike Gore, I want you also to weigh in on this because I think this is really important. So this a beat writer for the Colorado Avalanche, who just won the Stanley Cup. Their beat writer basically maybe caught up in the moment. I'm not sure what it was, but there's pictures of him hoisting the Stanley Cup as if, he's a member of that organization. And I think that's brought some ridicule to him from journalists who say, hey, you're just there to cover the team. You're not there to celebrate necessarily with the team. And Ian, you kind of brought that up. I'll let you kind of lead us into it. And Mike, as a former kind of to a degree, maybe on the other side a little bit, as a longtime sports information director, get your thoughts on this. But Ian, the gist of your column was, this guy's a journalist, man. He just needs to cover the team kind of, and leave it at that.
Right. That's the debate here. And it has been a fascinating debate. I mentioned it on Facebook. Apparently, it was brought to my attention this was a big topic of discussion on Denver sports radio a couple days ago. But yeah, Mike Chambers, he's a reporter for the Denver Post, and he posted a picture of himself on Twitter hoisting the Stanley Cup with a cigar in his mouth, celebrating presumably as if he was a member of the team. But he is not a member of the team. He doesn't play for the Colorado Avalanche. He's not a coach. He's not on the coaching staff. He's not an executive. He covers the team for the Denver Post. He does, if this was somebody who worked for, say, the Colorado Avalanche's website or TV network, okay, they're arguably a part of the team, and they can celebrate. There's some, like broadcasters, they'll get rings, right, if their team wins a championship. But it just, to many journalists, it looked unprofessional to be celebrating with the team as if he was a player. Now, I know some fans are going to say, who cares, or, lighten up, this is sports. He's not covering the January 6th hearings or a mass shooting. Okay, so it's not a big deal. But it does have to do with professionalism and whether or not you think these guys are homers for the teams they cover. So, some fans think that people who cover the teams are rooting for them anyway. But for many, that's not the case. So I just think it was a bad look. It affects Mike Chambers' credibility. I mean, what if he has to be critical of the team at some point next season? Can he go into that locker room and answer or ask tough questions? And those guys would say, hey, you were celebrating with us. What's the deal? Now, real quick, I know we're short on time, but Chambers defended himself by saying it was the player who asked him to do that, and it was a player that he's covered for 12 seasons, and they have a lot of history together, so he kind of got caught up in the moment there and posed for these pictures.
Mikey.
Well, yeah, I agree with everything you say there. It really is, just bizarre hearing about it. Of course, the Stanley Cup is his unique trophy that gets passed around, for months afterwards, being brought to towns and that'll be around Denver. So it's kind of a unique situation. And, journalism, as you know, it's a lot different. It's a lot different today. I mean, as someone who does some part-time writing for the Asheville Citizen-Times, and it's just the rules are different as far as things go. You've heard me on this show complain. I hope no one from the Citizen-Times is listening right now, but the stuff that they don't cover, and they always use the reason, well, there's not enough interest and all this. Hey, it comes down to money, and Gannett doesn't want to spend the money. To have more sports writers at the Asheville Citizen-Times to cover UNC Asheville, Western Carolina, the Asheville Tourists. And so they kind of find reasons, or we did this survey, but no, it all comes down to money. And I think we have so many examples of this, of things that don't get covered, that something like this, you couldn't hear about this happening 10 years ago, but now it can happen because I think the lines are so blurred. And I think this is part of a response to that. It's a bad look. It wasn't smart for that reporter to do it, but because the lines are just so blurred now, and things are so different, and it's all about money, about how much money you can make for the corporation that runs your newspaper or runs your agency, and that these lines get blurred. So it's definitely a bad look, but not shocking in this day and age.
My first thought when I read your story was Keith Jarrett, and I was remembering Keith, Keith could go out and have a beer with Eddie Biedenbach, right, and have a relationship with Eddie, but it never impacted his Mike can attribute to, right, Mike? It never impacted his coverage of the team. He could go out and have a beer with Eddie, but the next day or next week, he could write a column trash, just being all over the program.
And he did. And yes, that would have been, you could make the point in 2012, I kind of kidded Keith before the championship game. When we that was the year when we almost didn't host a championship game because the Southern Conference tournament. And Keith led some coverage of that for 3 weeks. That's why I get a kick out of when Gannett or the people tell me there's not enough interest in UNC Asheville basketball. I can show you 3 weeks where there was a lot of interest in UNC Asheville basketball. But I remember kidding Keith that, like, a lot of people felt like he should have gotten a ring if he won the championship because of what he did. But I couldn't imagine Keith walking up a ladder to cut down the nets and stuff.
Or in a photo with the team, afterwards,
right,
celebrating a championship.
Absolutely. I mean, and Eddie being the kind of guy he was, he would have, if he had seen Keith, he would have asked him to go up and cut the net down. I mean, he would have, because of their friendship, and just Eddie kind of always thought that we should all get along. We're all in this together, and it's the TV station and the newspaper. We should all work together, which is wonderful utopia. But that's not the way it works. And Keith would have turned Eddie down for doing that. But just that's a bad look. That's a bad look. But unfortunately, it just I think, as Ian knows probably better than anybody, that the standards are much different now in journalism with the way things go. Yeah. And this stuff would be shocking 10 years ago, but today, it's no big deal.
Well, if you want to read this column, barracksportsmedia.com, or go to Ian's Facebook page and find the post there. It's a great read. And Ian, we can't thank you enough as always, my friend. Have a great rest of the week.
Okay, thanks for bringing this up. I appreciate that, talking about it on the air, and you guys enjoy your weekend as well.
You bet, man. Thank you. Great discussion as always with Ian Castleberry.